Hare Krishna, welcome everyone to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Before we start our Srimad Bhagavatam class, let's do a simple Mangala Charana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chayam Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraid Nastaparesha Vadareshu Nityam Bhakta Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavadi Naistikihi Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jnana Salakaya Chaksuramritanyana Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnumadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimite Japataka Swami Iti Namne Nama Achar Vidani Tai Kripa Vidani Gora Kadradam Dai Telegram Tarine. Welcome everyone to today's Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 29, chapter entitled Bhakti Yoga. So this chapter is the final chapter in the series of Uddhava Gita. The conversation, the sacred conversation between Krishna and Uddhava. So in this chapter, Krishna is going to talk about Bhakti Yoga. Just before this chapter, Krishna was explaining about Jnana Yoga. So after hearing Jnana Yoga, Uddhava told Krishna that this Jnana Yoga is too difficult for most people. Most people meaning us in Kali Yuga. He says that this Jnana Yoga is full of austerities and sacrifice. So Uddhava said it's too difficult. Can you please tell me another method that is more easier? So in this chapter, Krishna is going to talk about Bhakti Yoga. So let's start with text number 1. Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Lord Achyuta, I fear that the method of yoga described by you is very difficult for one who cannot control his mind. Therefore, please explain to me in simple terms how someone can more easily execute it." Text number 2. O lotus-eyed Lord, generally, those yogis who try to steady the mind experience frustration because of their inability to perfect the state of trance. Thus, they vary in their attempts to bring the mind under control. So here is very important point. Any other method other than Bhakti Yoga, Uddhava is saying here, yogis, they find it very difficult, they experience frustration. These yogis and also fruitive workers. Text number 3. Therefore, O lotus-eyed Lord of the universe, swan-like men happily take shelter of your lotus feet, the source of all transcendental ecstasy. But those who take pride in their accomplishment in yoga and karma fail to take shelter of you and are defeated by your illusory energy. So here Sri Uddhava emphasizes that one can achieve spiritual perfection simply by taking shelter of the personality of Godhead. Those who do so are called hamsas, swan-like men, the most discriminating human being, since they are able to locate the actual source of spiritual happiness and the Lord's lotus feet. Those who are attracted to or proud of achievements in the field of mystic yoga or ordinary material endeavors cannot appreciate the great advantage of obediently surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, the yogis and fruitive workers are proud of their so-called achievements and are more attracted to those their own endeavor than to the Lord himself. By humbly taking shelter of Lord Krishna, one can advance easily and quickly on the path of Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead. Text number 4. My dear infallible Lord, it is not very astonishing that you intimately approach your servants who have taken exclusive shelter of you. After all, during your appearance as Lord Ramachandra, even while great demigods like Brahma were vying to place their effulgent tip of their helmet upon the cushion where your lotus feet rest. You displayed special affection for monkeys such as Hanuman because they have taken exclusive shelter of you. So here Uddhava is making another very wonderful point. He says here that the devotees of the Lord become completely successful by the Lord's causeless mercy. Sometimes Lord Krishna accepts a position of subservient to his great devotees, as with Nanda Maharaj, the Gopis, Bali Maharaj and others. Although demigods like Lord Brahma was standing in line to touch their helmet to the Lord's foot cushion, still Lord Ramachandra awarded his most intimate friendship to subhumans such as monkeys headed by Hanuman. Similarly, Lord Krishna's affection for the deer and the cows and even for the trees of Vrindavan is well known. Further, the Lord gladly drove the chariot of Arjuna and acted as a messenger and faithful subordinate of King Yudhishthira. Such devotees have no need for elaborate jnana yoga systems or the process for achieving mystic powers. All these devotees are represented here by Sri Uddhava, who frankly informs the Lord that the sophisticated system of philosophical speculation and mystic yoga are not appealing for one who has developed a taste for direct loving service to the Lord. Text number 5. Who then could dare reject you, the very soul, the most dear object of worship, the Supreme Lord of all, you who give all possible perfection to the devotees who take shelter of you? Who could be so ungrateful, knowing the benefits you bestow? Who could reject you and accept something for the sake of material enjoyment, which simply leads to forgetfulness of you? And what lack is there for us who are engaged in the service of the dust of your lotus feet? So there's a very nice verse here from Narayani of Moksha Dharma from Sri Mahabharata. It says here, whatever among the 4 goals of human life can be achieved by various spiritual practice is automatically achieved without such endeavor by the person who has taken shelter of Lord Narayana, the refuge of all persons. Thus a Krishna conscious person knows that he will obtain all perfection of life simply by surrendering to the devotional service of Lord Krishna. This is the highest stage of yoga as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Text number 6. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with prolonged lifetime of Brahma, for you appear in 2 features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living entities by directing him how to come to you. So here Uddhava is saying Lord Krishna, there's a quote here actually from the purport by Srila Jiva Goswami, who says Lord Krishna is 10 million times more dear to a devotee than life itself. And according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, even by rendering devotional service for the total duration of 1000 universal creation, a devotee cannot repay the debt he feels to the Lord for having awarded him loving service to the Lord's lotus feet. The Lord appears within the heart as the super soul and externally both as the spiritual master and as his literary incarnation, the supreme Vedic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Text number 7. Sukadev Goswami said, thus questioned by the most affectionate Uddhava, Lord Krishna, the supreme controller of all controllers, who takes the entire universe as his plaything and assumes the 3 forms of Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, began to reply, lovingly displaying his all-attractive smile. Text number 8. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, yes, I shall describe to you the principle of devotion to me, by executing which a mortal human being will conquer the unconquerable death. Text number 9. Always remember me. One should perform all his duties for me without becoming impetuous. With mind and intelligence offered to me, one should fix his mind in attraction to my devotional service. So here Krishna begins to explain that all of one's love and affection should be devoted to pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not indicated here that one should try to relish selfish satisfaction in devotional service, but rather one should be attracted to the Lord's own satisfaction, which one can achieve by faithfully executing the order of a bona fide spiritual master, coming in disciplinic succession from Lord Krishna himself. Attachment to one's own satisfaction, even within devotional service, is materialistic, whereas attachment to the satisfaction of the Lord is pure spiritual emotion. Text number 10. One should take shelter of holy places where my saintly devotees reside, and one should be guided by the exemplary activities of my devotees who appear among demigods, demons, and human beings. So here Krishna explains that Narada Muni is one of the great devotees of the Lord who appeared among the demigods. Prahlad Maharaj appeared among the demons, and many other great devotees such as Ambarisha Maharaj and the Pandavas appeared among human beings. One should take shelter of the devotees' exemplary activities and also the holy places where devotees reside. Thus, one will remain safe on the path of devotional service. Text number 11. Either alone or in public gathering, with singing, dancing, and other exhibition of royal opulence, one should arrange to celebrate those holy days, ceremonies, and festivals set aside specially for my worship. Text number 12. With a pure heart, one should see me, the Supreme Soul within all beings and also within oneself, to be both unblemished by anything material and also present everywhere, both externally and internally, just like the omnipresent sky. So here Krishna is saying that there's a quote here by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The Lord has spoken the present verse to attract those who are inclined towards philosophical speculation about the absolute truth. Such transcendental scholars searching for the ultimate unity will be attracted by the Lord's manifestation described here. Text number 13 and 14. O brilliant Uddhava, one who thus views all living entities with the idea that I am present within each of them, and who by taking shelter of this divine knowledge offer due respects to everyone, is considered actually wise. Such a man sees equally the Brahmana and the outcast, the thief and the charitable promoter of Brahmanical culture, the sun and the tiny spark of fire, the gentle and the cruel. So very nice. Here a series of opposites is set as an example, namely the high-class Brahmanas and the low-class Aborigines. The thief who steals from respectable persons and the respecter of Brahmanical culture who gives charity to Brahmanas. The all-powerful sun and the insignificant spark. And finally, the kind and the cruel. Ordinarily, the ability to distinguish between such opposites qualifies one as intelligent. How then can the Lord state that ignoring such obvious differences establish one as a wise man? The answer is given. A wise person sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead within everything. Therefore, although externally perceiving and dealing with the varieties of material situation, a wise man is more impressed by and concerned with the overwhelming unity of all existence, which is based on the presence of the Supreme Lord within everything. As explained here, a truly wise person is not limited to superficial material discrimination. Text number 15. For him who constantly meditates upon my presence within all persons, the bad tendency of rivalry, envy, and abusiveness along with false ego are very quickly destroyed. So the conditioned soul tend to feel rivalry towards our equal, envy towards our superior, and the desire to belittle our subordinates. These contaminated propensities, along with their very basis, false ego, can be quickly vanquished by meditating upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead within every living being. Text number 16. Disregarding the ridicule of one's companion, one should give up the bodily concept and its accompanying embarrassment. One should offer obeisances before all, even the dog, outcasts, cows, and asses, falling flat upon the ground like a rod. So here one should practice seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead within all creatures. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises all devotees to consider themselves lower than a blade of grass and to be more tolerant than a tree. In such a humble position, one will not be disturbed in the prosecution of pure devotional service to the Lord. A devotee does not foolishly think that a cow or an ass is God, but rather the devotee sees the Supreme Lord within all creatures, and on this higher spiritual plane, he does not discriminate. Text number 17. Until one has fully developed the ability to see me within all living beings, one must continue to worship me by this process with the activities of his speech, mind, and body. So, until one fully realizes the Supreme Lord within all beings, he should continue the process of offering obeisances to all creatures. Although one may not be able to actually fall on the ground before all creatures, at least within his mind or by his words, one should offer respects to all living beings. This will accelerate the devotee's self-realization. Text number 18. By such transcendental knowledge of the all-pervading personality of Godhead, one is able to see the absolute truth everywhere. Freed thus from all doubt, one gives up fruitive activities. Text number 19. Indeed, I consider this process, using one's mind, word, and bodily functions for realizing me within all living beings, to be the best possible method of spiritual enlightenment. Text number 20. My dear Uddhava, because I have personally established it, this process of devotional service unto me is transcendental and free from any material motivation. Certainly a devotee never suffers even the slightest loss by adopting this process. So here Krishna is wonderfully explaining that although great sages and authorities have established various methods of human progress, the Supreme Lord himself has introduced the system of Bhakti Yoga, wherein one directly takes shelter of the Lord in loving service. One who serves the Lord without personal motivation can never be defeated in his progress and will certainly go back home, back to Godhead in the near future. Text number 21. O Uddhava, greatest of saints, in a dangerous situation an ordinary person cries, becomes fearful and laments, although such useless emotions do not change the situation. But activities offered to me without personal motivation, even if they are externally useless, amounts to actual process of religion. Wow, Krishna is giving a wonderful secret here. Krishna is saying that even the most insignificant activities, when offered to the Supreme Lord without personal desires, can elevate one to the perfection of spiritual life. Actually, Lord Krishna always protects and maintains his devotees. Even if a devotee cries to the Lord for protection or maintenance, desiring to continue his devotional service unimpeded, the Lord Krishna accepts such apparently unnecessary appeal to be the highest religious process. Text number 22. This process is the supreme intelligence of the intelligent and the cleverness of the most clever, for by following it one can, in this very life, make use of this temporary and unreal to achieve me, the eternal reality. So here Krishna As he has described in this chapter, one who desires personal prestige in the Lord's service cannot be considered intelligent or clever. Similarly, one who is anxious to become a sophisticated transcendental philosopher is not the most intelligent, nor is one who is expert in accumulating money. The Lord here states that the most intelligent and clever person is the devotee who offers his temporary illusory material body and possessions to him with love and without personal motivation. The devotee thus obtains the eternal absolute truth. In other words, real intelligence is actually surrender to Lord Krishna without personal desire or duplicity. That is the Lord's opinion. Text number 23. Thus I have related to you both in brief and in detail a complete survey of the signs of the absolute truth. Even for the demigods, this science is very difficult to comprehend. So here, Krishna is explaining those living entities in the mode of goodness, such as demigods, saints, and pious philosophers, who nevertheless cannot understand the absolute truth because they lack the full surrender to the personality of Godhead. Text number 24. I have repeatedly spoken this knowledge to you with clear reasoning. Anyone who properly understands it will become free from all doubt and attain liberation. Text number 25. Anyone who fixes his attention on this clear answer to your question will attain to the eternal, confidential goal of Vedas, the supreme absolute truth. Text number 26. So now Krishna is going to glorify the devotees of Krishna. One who liberally disseminates this knowledge among my devotees is the bestower of absolute truth, and to him I give my very own self. Text number 27. He who loudly recites this supreme knowledge, which is the most lucid and purifying, becomes purified day by day, for he reveals me to others with the lamp of transcendental knowledge. Text number 28. Anyone who regularly listens to this knowledge with faith and attention, all the while engaging in my pure devotional service, will never become bound by the reactions of material work. Text number 29. My dear friend Uddhava, have you now completely understood this transcendental knowledge? Are the confusions and lamentation that arose in your mind now dispelled? So here Krishna is asking very kindly to Sri Uddhava, Sri Uddhava had been bewildered by considering manifestation of Lord Krishna's own potency to be separate from him. Uddhava's lamentation arose because he thought himself separate from Lord Krishna. Actually, Sri Uddhava is an eternally liberated soul, but the Lord placed him in a bewilderment and lamentation so that this supreme knowledge of Uddhava Gita could be spoken. Lord Krishna's question here indicates that if Uddhava had not perfectly understood this knowledge, Lord Krishna would have explained the same thing again. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, since Sri Uddhava is the intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Lord's question here was in a friendly, playful spirit. The Lord was well aware of Uddhava's complete enlightenment in Krishna consciousness. Text number 30. You should not share this instruction with anyone who is hypocritical, atheistic, or dishonest, or with anyone who will not listen faithfully, who is not a devotee, or who is simply not humble. Text number 31. This knowledge should be taught to one who is free from these bad qualities, who is dedicated to the welfare of the Brahmanas, and who is kindly disposed, saintly and pure. And if common workers and women are found to have devotion for the Supreme Lord, they are also to be accepted as qualified hearers. Text number 32. When an inquisitive person comes to understand this knowledge, he has nothing further to know. After all, One who has drunk the most palatable nectar cannot remain thirsty. Text number 33. Through analytical knowledge, ritualistic work, mystic yoga, mundane business, and political rule, people seek to advance in religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. But because you are my devotee, whatever man can accomplish in this multifarious way, you will very easily find within me. So Krishna says the same thing at the end of chapter 8 also. So Lord Krishna is the basis of all that exists, and one who takes exclusive shelter of the Lord never suffers any loss whatsoever for his intelligent decision to surrender to Krishna. Text number 34. A person who gives up all fruitive activities and offers himself entirely unto me, eagerly desiring to render service unto me, achieves liberation from birth and death, and is promoted to the status of sharing my own opulence. Text number 35. Sukadeva Goswami said, hearing these words spoken by Lord Krishna, and having thus been shown the entire path of yoga, Uddhava folded his hands to offer obeisances, but his throat choked up with love and his eyes overflowed with tears, so he could say nothing. Text number 36. Steadying his mind, which has become overwhelmed with love, Uddhava felt extremely grateful to Lord Krishna, the greatest hero of the Yadu dynasty. My dear King Parikshit, Uddhava bowed down to touch the Lord's lotus feet with his head, and when he then spoke with folded hands. So here Sukadeva Goswami is describing the situation, the condition of Uddhava. So Uddhava actually he was in fear of separation from Lord Krishna, and was continuously entering the mind of Sri Uddhava. Thus he tried to maintain his enthusiasm by remembering the Lord's great kindness upon him. He steadied his mind with feeling of gratitude towards the Lord. Text number 37. Sri Uddhava said, O unborn, primeval Lord, although I had fallen into great darkness of illusion, my ignorance has now been dispelled by your merciful association. Indeed, how can cold, darkness and fear exert their power over one who has approached the brilliant sun? So here, although Sri Uddhava feared separation from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, he now understands that in a fundamental sense the Lord is everything. Vasudevam Sarvam Iti. Krishna consciousness can never be threatened or diminished for one who has taken full shelter of the Lord's lotus feet. Text number 38. In return for my insignificant surrender, you have mercifully bestowed upon me, your servant, the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Therefore, what devotee of yours who has any gratitude could ever give up your lotus feet and take shelter of another master? Text number 39. The firmly binding ropes of my affection for the families of Dasaras, Vrisni, Andakaras and Satvatas, a rope you originally cast over me by your illusory energy for the purpose of developing your creation, is now cut off by the weapon of transcendental knowledge of the self. So here, Uddhava, although Uddhava is a member of the families mentioned in this verse, are eternal associates of Lord Krishna and thus proper object of affection, Sri Uddhava had regarded them as his personal relatives rather than simply as pure devotee of the Lord. Influenced by the Lord's illusory potency, Uddhava had desired the prosperity and the victory of these dynasties. But now, by hearing Lord Krishna's instructions, he had again fixed his mind exclusively upon Lord Krishna, and thus he regards his so-called family members without any mundane conception as eternal servant of the Lord. Text number 40. Obeisance unto you, O greatest of yogi, please instruct me, who am surrendered unto you, how I may have undeviating attachment to your lotus feet. Text 41 to 44. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Uddhava, take my order and go to my ashrama called Badrika. Purify yourself by both touching and also bathing in the holy waters there, which have emanated from my lotus feet. Rid yourself of all sinful reactions with the sight of the sacred Alakandana river. Dress yourself in bark and eat whatever is naturally available in the forest. Thus you should remain content and free from desire, tolerant of all dualities, good-natured, self-controlled, peaceful, and endowed with transcendental knowledge and realization. With fixed attention, meditate constantly upon these instructions I have imparted to you and assimilate their essence. Fix your words and your thoughts upon me, and always endeavor to increase your realization of my transcendental qualities. In this way, you will cross beyond the destination of the three modes of nature and finally come back to me. Text number 45. Sukadev Goswami said, thus addressed by Lord Krishna, whose intelligence destroys all the suffering of material life, Sri Uddhava circumambulated the Lord and then fell down, placing his head upon the Lord's feet. Although Uddhava was free from the influence of all material dualities, his heart was breaking, and at this time of departure he drenched the Lord's lotus feet with his tears. Text number 46. Gratefully fearing separation from him for whom he felt such indestructible affection, Uddhava was distraught and he could not give up the Lord's company. Finally, feeling great pain, he bowed down to the Lord again and again, placed the slippers of his master upon his head and departed. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 4, Text 5, which Uddhava was en route to Badrik Ashrama, he heard about the Lord's journey to Pravasha. Turning back and following Lord Krishna from behind, he saw the Lord alone just after the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty. After being again mercifully instructed by the Personality of Godhead along with Maitreya, who had just arrived, Uddhava felt his knowledge of the truth reawakening. And then, by the order of the Lord, he went on his way. Text number 47. Thereupon, placing the Lord's deeply within his heart, the great devotee Uddhava went to Badrik Ashrama. By engaging there in austerities, he attained to the Lord's personal abode, which had been described to him by the only friend of the universe, Lord Krishna himself. So, Uddhava, he got liberation by returning to Dwarka in the spiritual sky. Text number 48. Thus Lord Krishna, whose lotus feet are served by all great yoga masters, spoke to his devotee this nectarian knowledge, which comprises the entire ocean of spiritual bliss. Anyone within this universe who receives this narration with great faith is assured of liberation. Text number 49. I offer my obeisances to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original, the greatest of all beings, Lord Sri Krishna. He is the author of the Vedas, and just to destroy his devotees' fear of material existence, like a bee, he has collected this nectarian essence of all knowledge and self-realization. Thus he has awarded to his many devotees this nectar from the ocean of bliss, and by his mercy they have drunk it. So just as a bee extracts nectar from a flower without harming the flower, Lord Sri Krishna extracts the essence of all Vedic knowledge without disturbing the elaborate system of Vedic advancement. In other words, Lord Sri Krishna established himself as the goal of Vedic knowledge without destroying preliminary inferior process that may be applicable to grossly materialistic men. Srila Sukadeva Goswami thus conclude by offering his obeisances to the spiritual master of the entire universe, Lord Sri Krishna. So thus ends the purport of the humble servant of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada of the 11th canto, 29th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Bhakti Yoga. So this is the final chapter on the series of chapter called Uddhava Gita. So this Uddhava Gita has been very, very wonderful, in which Krishna has explained and described so many wonderful stories and so many wonderful analogies that we can study again and again, of which the ones that really come to mind are the stories about the Avadut Brahmana who instruct Maharaj Yadu, the Avadut Brahmana who said he had 24 gurus and he learned 24 lessons from 24 gurus. And then Krishna told the song of the Avanti Brahmana, of which the Avanti Brahmana sang a song that instructs every living entity how to escape from this entanglement of repeated birth and death. And then of course we heard the story of Maharaj Pururava. So Maharaj Pururava is known as Aila Gita. He shows how one can escape and understand the complexities of this material life. And of course Lord Krishna's instruction on deity worship. So therefore this is the third last chapter in Canto 11. We've got another 2 more chapters to go before we finish Canto 11. Hare Krishna, thank you very much.